The sun was setting over the festival grounds, casting a golden glow across the sea of attendees. The air vibrated with bass notes and the collective energy of thousands of people united by music. This was Harmonic Fields, one of the biggest music festivals of the summer, and for Alex, it represented something more than just a weekend of entertainment. It was an escape, a chance to breathe outside the confines of his carefully constructed life. Alex adjusted his festival wristband, feeling the pleasant ache in his legs from hours of standing and dancing. At 25, he had spent most of his life playing it safe, keeping his true self hidden beneath layers of careful conformity. His sexuality remained a closely guarded secret in his small hometown, where being different still raised eyebrows and invited whispers. The festival, hundreds of miles from home, offered a rare freedom. The crowd swelled around him as he made his way toward the main stage where Lunar Tides, the headline act, would perform in less than an hour. People brushed past him, a kaleidoscope of faces, styles, and energies all converging in this temporary community of music lovers. Alex felt simultaneously anonymous and connected, a paradoxical sensation that made festivals so appealing to him. As he navigated through the throng, Alex noticed him for the first time, a tall guy with tousled dark hair and an easy smile that seemed to cut through the chaos. Their eyes met briefly across the crowd, and something electric passed between them before the sea of people shifted, breaking their connection. Alex felt his heart rate quicken, but he dismissed it as festival excitement, the natural high of being part of something so vibrant and alive. Let me explain why these moments matter so much at events like these. In the ordinary world, we're constrained by routines and expectations, but festivals create these bubble universes where the usual rules seem suspended. Connections form more quickly, inhibitions lower, and people often find themselves being more authentic than they would in their day-to-day lives. For someone like Alex, carrying the weight of an unshared identity, these spaces become rare opportunities for genuine expression. The next few hours passed in a blur of music, movement, and fleeting interactions. Alex found himself at a food stall, waiting in line for overpriced festival tacos, when he felt someone step into line behind him. Turning slightly, he recognized the dark-haired stranger from earlier, now standing close enough that Alex could see the flecks of amber in his hazel eyes. "The lines are insane today," the stranger commented, his voice carrying a slight accent that Alex couldn't quite place. "I'm Jake, by the way." "Alex," he replied, surprised by how steady his voice sounded despite the sudden flutter in his chest. "And yeah, I think half the state decided to show up today." Jake laughed, a warm sound that seemed to create a small pocket of intimacy in the crowded festival grounds. "It's my third year here. It gets bigger every time, but that's part of the charm, right? The collective experience." Their conversation flowed easily as they waited, touching on favorite bands, previous concerts, and the unique culture of music festivals. By the time they reached the front of the line, Alex felt as if he'd known Jake for much longer than 20 minutes. They decided to eat together, finding a small patch of grass at the periphery of the main field. As they talked, Alex learned that Jake was a graphic designer from Portland who traveled to at least 5 major festivals each year. He spoke with his hands, animated and expressive, and Alex found himself drawn to the way Jake seemed so comfortable in his own skin, something Alex had always struggled with. "So what brings you to Harmonic Fields?" Jake asked, finishing the last of his food. "You mentioned it's your first time here." Alex hesitated, weighing how much to reveal. "I needed a break from real life, I guess. A place where nobody knows me or has any expectations." He paused, then added more quietly, "Where I can just be myself without worrying about what anyone thinks." Jake's expression softened with understanding. "I get that. Festivals were my safe space too, when I was first coming out. There's something about being surrounded by strangers that makes it easier to be honest." The casual mention of coming out hung in the air between them. Alex felt a surge of both anxiety and relief. Anxiety at having his own unspoken truth so close to the surface, and relief at Jake's openness, the implicit understanding that created an invisible bond between them. "Was it hard?" Alex asked, his voice nearly lost in the distant thump of bass from a nearby stage. "Coming out." Jake considered the question. "Yes and no. Hard in the moment, but easier than living behind a mask. That's the thing about pretending. It costs you more than you realize until you stop doing it. Their conversation was interrupted by an announcement that lunar tides would take the stage in 15 minutes. The main field was already packed with eager fans, and people were rushing to secure spots with good views. "We should head over," Jake suggested, standing and offering Alex a hand up. "I know a decent spot where we can see without getting completely crushed." The simple contact of Jake's hand, warm, strong, and reassuring, sent a current through Alex that had nothing to do with the festival's electric atmosphere. They made their way through the crowd, Jake occasionally placing a guiding hand on Alex's shoulder or back to keep them from getting separated. Each touch felt significant, charged with possibility. As lunar tides took the stage to deafening cheers, Alex and Jake found themselves pushed closer together by the surging crowd. The band launched into their opening song, and the entire field seemed to move as one organism, thousands of bodies swaying and jumping to the music. In that moment, with Jake's shoulder pressed against his and the music washing over them, Alex felt a freedom he rarely experienced, the freedom to simply exist without judgment, to feel without fear. Throughout the set, they exchanged glances and comments, creating a private dialogue within the public experience. When the band played their most famous ballad, Jake sang along, his voice close to Alex's ear, and Alex felt a shiver that had nothing to do with the evening breeze. There was an undeniable chemistry building between them, a connection that seemed to strengthen with each shared moment. The concert reached its crescendo with an extended version of Lunar Tide's biggest hit. The crowd's energy peaked, everyone jumping and singing along to lyrics about finding connection in a disconnected world. As the final notes faded and the band took their bows, a collective sigh of satisfaction rippled through the audience, followed immediately by movement as thousands of people simultaneously decided to leave. What had been an organized crowd during the performance quickly became a chaotic mass as everyone pushed toward the exits. Alex felt the first twinge of anxiety as bodies pressed against him from all sides, the space between people disappearing as the crowd condensed near the main exit. "Stay close," Jake called over the noise, reaching back to grasp Alex's wrist. "It gets crazy here after the headliners." The crowd continued to compress as they approached the bottleneck of the exit. What had started as uncomfortable quickly became concerning as Alex felt the pressure increasing, making it difficult to maintain his footing. People pushed from behind, voices rising with impatience, and then concern as the situation intensified. Alex saw panic flash across faces around him as the crowd crush began in earnest. "I can't," Alex started to say, feeling his chest tighten as the space around him shrank further. His foot slipped, and for a terrifying moment, he felt himself beginning to fall in the press of bodies. Then Jake was there, moving against the flow to reach him. With surprising strength, Jake maneuvered them toward the edge of the crowd, finding a small pocket of space near a barrier. Before Alex could process what was happening, Jake had positioned himself with his back against the barrier, pulling Alex against his chest and wrapping his arms securely around him, creating a human shield between Alex and the crushing crowd. "I've got you," Jake said, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. "Just breathe. We're going to wait it out until it clears a bit." The solid warmth of Jake's chest against Alex's back provided an anchor amid the swirling panic. Alex could feel Jake's heartbeat, rapid but strong, and focused on matching his breathing to its rhythm. They stood like that, locked together as the crowd surged and pushed around them, Jake's arms tightening protectively whenever a particularly strong wave of pressure came their way. "Thank you," Alex managed to say, his voice shaky. "I don't do well with crowds crushing you." Jake finished with a gentle laugh that Alex felt rumble through his chest. "Yeah, most people don't. Festival exits are the worst part of these events. Security never plans properly for how quickly everyone leaves after the main act." As they waited for the worst of the crush to subside, their conversation continued, now intimate by necessity due to their close proximity. There was something profoundly comforting about being held so securely by someone who had been a stranger just hours ago. Alex found himself sharing things he rarely discussed, his struggles with his identity, the pressure from his family to be someone he wasn't, his fear of rejection if he ever fully embraced who he truly was. "Sometimes I feel like I'm playing a part in my own life," Alex admitted, the words easier to say when he didn't have to look Jake in the eye. Like the real me is locked in a room somewhere, watching someone else live my life. Jake's arms adjusted slightly, still protective, but now also comforting. I spent years doing that too. It's exhausting, isn't it? Being the version of yourself that makes everyone else comfortable while you slowly suffocate. The crowd began to thin gradually, the pressure easing as people filtered through the exits, but neither of them moved immediately. There was a safety in their position, a bubble of honesty that Alex wasn't ready to burst. "How did you stop?" Alex asked. "How did you find the courage to just be yourself?" Jake was quiet for a moment, his breath warm against Alex's hair. "I realized that the fear of living an inauthentic life had finally grown larger than the fear of rejection. And honestly, it wasn't one big moment of courage. It was 1,000 tiny decisions to be a little more honest each day." As the crowd finally cleared enough to move safely, Jake loosened his hold, but didn't completely let go, one arm remaining lightly around Alex's waist as they turned to face each other. In the dim lighting of the now emptying festival grounds, Jake's eyes held a question that made Alex's heart race. "I'm glad I found you in this crowd," Jake said softly. "Or that you found me. However it happened." The moment stretched between them, charged with possibility. Alex felt a lifetime of hesitation warring with the immediate, undeniable connection they'd formed. Here, far from home and the watching eyes of people who thought they knew him, he could be brave in a way he never allowed himself to be. "I'm glad too," Alex replied, and before he could overthink it, he leaned forward and kissed Jake. The kiss was brief but electric, a perfect distillation of the connection they'd been building all evening. When they pulled apart, Jake's smile was bright enough to rival the festival lights surrounding them. "I've been wanting to do that since I saw you by the food stalls," Jake admitted, his hand gently cupping Alex's cheek. They made their way slowly toward the festival exit, now easily navigable with most of the crowd gone. The night air had cooled, and the grounds were taking on that peculiar emptiness that follows large events. Discarded cups and wrappers scattered across trampled grass, stages being dismantled, the magic slowly dissolving back into ordinary space. But for Alex, the magic hadn't diminished. If anything, it had concentrated into something more real and tangible than the festival's temporary enchantment. As they walked, shoulders touching, exchanging stories and discovering more connections between them, Alex felt a growing certainty that this wasn't just a festival fling or a momentary escape from reality. "Where are you staying tonight?" Jake asked as they approached the main gates. "I have a hotel about 2 miles from here," Alex replied. "You?" "Camping in the festival grounds," Jake said with a grin. "Very authentic festival experience, complete with terrible sleep and questionable shower facilities." They both laughed, and Alex found himself saying, "My room has 2 beds and significantly better shower facilities. If you wanted to upgrade your authentic experience." Jake's eyes lit up with surprise and pleasure. "Are you sure? I don't want to presume anything." "I'm sure," Alex said, surprised by his own confidence. "I'm not ready for tonight to end yet." The walk to Alex's hotel was filled with conversation that deepened their connection, discussions about favorite books and films, travel dreams, and the kind of philosophical questions that seem perfectly natural to explore with someone new who already feels familiar. They stopped at an all-night diner for coffee, extending their time together as if by mutual agreement that something special was happening. In the hotel room, there was a moment of awkwardness as the reality of their situation settled around them. The intimacy they'd shared during the crowd crush had been born of necessity, and now they needed to navigate what came next. "I can take this bed," Jake said, setting his backpack down. And I meant what I said. No presumptions or expectations. Alex appreciated the space Jake was giving him, the understanding that this was all new territory. "Thank you for everything tonight, for keeping me safe in that crowd, for listening, for seeing me." "You're easy to see, Alex," Jake replied softly. "You shine when you let yourself be authentic." They stayed up talking for hours, sitting cross-legged on their respective beds, gradually moving from lighter topics to deeper revelations. Jake shared his coming-out story, the initial rejection from his father that eventually gave way to cautious acceptance, the friends who surprised him with their support, and those who drifted away. "The hardest part wasn't even other people's reactions," Jake explained. "It was letting go of the version of my future I'd been taught to expect. Finding new dreams that fit the real me, not the person I was pretending to be. Alex nodded, understanding completely. I've spent so much energy trying to want the things I'm supposed to want. A certain kind of career, a certain kind of life. I sometimes wonder who I'd be if I'd just been honest from the beginning. It's never too late to find out, Jake said, his eyes holding Alex's with an intensity that made the air between them feel charged. When they finally decided to sleep, the digital clock on the nightstand showed 3:47 a.m. As Alex lay in the darkness, listening to Jake's breathing gradually slow and deepen, he felt a curious mixture of peace and excitement. Something had shifted in his world, as if the axis it spun on had been gently but irrevocably adjusted. Morning came with soft light filtering through the hotel curtains and the gentle sounds of Jake moving around the room. Alex opened his eyes to find Jake freshly showered, his hair damp and his smile tentative. "Morning," Jake said. "I was trying not to wake you." "It's okay," Alex replied, sitting up. "What time is checkout?" 11, Jake said. "So we have some time. I was thinking maybe we could get breakfast? If you wanna, that is." The uncertainty in Jake's voice made Alex realize that this connection wasn't just meaningful to him. Jake was invested too, perhaps even worried that the magic of the festival night wouldn't translate to the harsh light of day. "I'd like that," Alex said, and was rewarded with Jake's smile, as bright and genuine as it had been the night before. Over breakfast at a busy cafe near the hotel, they faced the inevitable question of what happened next. Jake lived in Portland, Alex in Seattle. Cities close enough to make something possible, but far enough to require effort. "So," Jake said, stirring his coffee though he hadn't added anything to it, "I'm not usually this forward, but last night was special, at least for me, and I'm wondering if you might want to see where this could go." The question hung between them, weighted with possibility. Alex thought about his life back in Seattle. The careful compartmentalization, the constant self-monitoring, the loneliness he'd grown so accustomed to he hardly noticed it anymore. Then he thought about how it felt to be with Jake, the freedom and connection he'd experienced in just one night. "I'd like that," Alex said, reaching across the table to take Jake's hand. "I think I need to make some changes in my life anyway. Being honest with myself, and eventually with the people around me. Maybe having someone who understands that process would help." Jake's fingers intertwined with his, warm and reassuring. "It helps to have allies when you're being brave. And for what it's worth, I think you're already braver than you give yourself credit for." They exchanged phone numbers and social media accounts, made tentative plans for Jake to visit Seattle the following weekend, and talked about all the things they could show each other in their respective cities. As they prepared to part ways, Jake to catch his bus back to Portland, Alex to begin the drive to Seattle, there was a bittersweetness to their goodbye. "Thank you for anchoring me," Alex said as they stood outside the cafe. "Not just during the crowd crush, but, in general. I feel like I've been adrift for a long time." Jake's kiss was gentle, but full of promise. Sometimes we find our anchors in the strangest places. Who would have thought a chaotic festival exit would be the beginning of something so meaningful? As Alex drove home, the festival wristband still on his arm, and Jake's playlist filling his car with music, he felt a clarity that had been missing for years. The festival had been meant as an escape, a temporary reprieve from the constraints of his everyday life. Instead, it had become a gateway to something more authentic, a version of himself that didn't need to escape because he was finally living truthfully. The road stretched before him, leading back to his familiar world, but Alex knew he was returning as someone slightly different, someone who had been seen and accepted, someone who had tasted the freedom of authenticity and couldn't go back to pretending. There would be challenges ahead, difficult conversations and moments of doubt, but also the promise of connection, of Jake's understanding smile and steadying presence. In the weeks and months that followed, Alex and Jake's relationship deepened through weekend visits, long phone calls, and the gradual integration of their separate lives. Alex began the process of coming out to friends and family. Some conversations went better than others, but Jake was always there afterward to listen, to comfort, or to celebrate. 6 months after the festival, Alex moved to Portland, finding a job at a marketing firm not far from Jake's design studio. They moved in together after a year, creating a home filled with music, art, and the kind of honest communication that had characterized their relationship from that first night. Sometimes, when they attended concerts together, they would find themselves in crowded venues, and Jake would instinctively pull Alex close, a protective arm around him in a gesture that had become symbolic of their beginning. And Alex, no longer afraid of crowds or of being truly seen, would lean into the embrace, grateful for the chaos that had brought them together and the courage they'd found in each other's arms. As for the festival wristband from Harmonic Fields, Alex had it framed alongside a photo of them taken the morning after in the hotel, sleepy-eyed but happy, the beginning of their story captured in a single image. It hung in their hallway, a reminder that sometimes the most significant moments in life come disguised as ordinary experiences, and that finding your true self often begins with finding someone who sees you clearly through the crowd. Total _char_count, 18,825.